Hey everybody, Kristen here of Chris Pattern. Thanks for coming back to my channel. And yes, like so many of us, we are lighting the candles, so many candles that are about to be liquidated from JoAnn. Many of us who are in the sewing and crafting community have been preparing for this day, but we're still not prepared. I need to figure out a way to get all this yarn. Like, of course, I expected, if they were, and let me run it back a little bit. So for those of you who are thinking, okay, I'm just jumping on a trend, this is a conspiracy video. No, this is real. If you are active in any of the crafting subreddits, and if you aren't, and I understand like Craft Snark and some of the other ones can be negative, but when it comes to like real tea on business operations and how certain craft businesses are and aren't doing well, it's pretty relevant. But I realize some of y'all are here because you prefer to come here and hear it with our emotion and our vibes. And usually on this channel, this is a growing channel. You might find that I haven't posted a lot of videos yet. I have one on how to get started. I have one that talks about why I craft, one that actually talks about a few stores that I like, but I'm gonna actually hold on that with recommending stores for reasons that will be revealed in another video. There's some conversations I want to have in real life with my DC and Baltimore crafting community, and I don't want those to be here. What I want to focus on is the fact that we're going to lose one of our major big box retailers. And those of you who know the DC area will know that we are not lacking for money. If anything, we are lacking for justice. Like some of, we, at least in the district proper, those who voted for Kamala Harris, those numbers are very high. Not that that says anything. And then if you voted for somebody else, it was probably like one of the lefter leaning parties. That's the type of time we are on in DC proper and pretty much in other places. And yes, our JoAnn stores weren't in the best condition. But of course, I love telling folks about this whole ordeal. To be able to go between the two as needed. Now, I'm going to tell you, neither one of these stores are in the best condition of their chains. If anything, I expected the one that I just showed you to go first. But apparently, they all get ready to go. And ironically, they might be going on my mom's birthday. And it was my mom who introduced me to crafting in the first place. So, here we are. This is where we stand. But I'm hoping to be here as your crafting whatever, if you can figure out how old I am or where I'm from. I mean, obviously it's in my voice. This is not DC inflection. This is Carolina inflection. And yeah, I started this platform crafting again after I was home in Greensboro, North Carolina. Shout out to West Market Street. That whole shopping strip. I mean, Planet Fitness could just probably take it over and make a super Planet Fitness at this point, since Harris Teeter also closing that same strip. And years ago, there was Kmart and CCC. But let me not go down tangents. But if you like tangents like this, when I come over here and talk about things and when I'm doing my crafts, I have great news for you. You can like and subscribe. I also have another channel called Defying Gentrification with Kristen Jeffers, where I get more into buildings and transit and all of that. But there's some overlap over here. And sometimes videos are going to show up on both channels. But in this case, I'm putting this just on the Chris Pattern channel because I feel like this is more of a Chris Pattern topic, a major store that we all know and love that's getting ready to go belly up. Not because we don't love it, not because we don't support it, not because they have just filled it full of junk that we can order on some of these other wholesale sites, but because that's it. They fill it full of junk that you can find on other wholesale sites, and they have owed so many people. Like, one example, those of you who follow some of the other sewers that are on here and the other crocheters, especially the sewers who've been in the Know Me by BMG pattern community, Number one, you're not getting any other patterns in these stores besides Design Group patterns. And apparently, Design Group was one of the bigger creditors of JoAnn in the first bankruptcy. And yes, this is the second bankruptcy, and this is the big one, the one that we were scared of. I will admit that I thought that this bankruptcy was going to be the other bankruptcy, and I definitely have run up some credit card on it, but I justified it because I do have a crafting business. I am trying to build up this YouTube channel. I'm trying to like connect with other crafters, especially Black, queer, disabled crafters that don't have options in this DC region. I moved here to get into, what I talk about on my other channel, but I ended up finding this craft refuge. I ended up, after that time I was home for Christmas, running around trying to get stuff, and thankfully the JoAnn and that Harris Teeter took my cards because my money was tied up in Maryland, but I was in North Carolina, and it was I was finally getting paid. I was working on a graphic design project, finally got paid for it. And I was like, okay, and the other thing I like to do when I do go home to North Carolina, I love going home and getting involved with a craft project. And for those of you who are watching who are based at least in driving distance of Greensboro and the Triad, you have Reconsidered Goods, you have Gate City Yarns. Like, I've been in there a couple times and I feel all right. Once again, that's another video to talk about the nuances of being Black and queer in a crafting space. And if you're ready for that video, definitely let me know in the comments because I'm happy to give it to you. The tea is hot and popping. And since we're going to be buying up some of these extra teacups that JoAnn has potentially to put in our house, we're going to need that. And, but it's, those communities exist, and everybody seems like everybody is, if you weren't taught to sew, somebody knows how to sew. And likewise with knitting, crochet, needlework, all these other crafts. And of course, if you're into making the soaps, the candles, painting. Now, for my painters and stuff, it's not like Michael's going away. And I know some Michaels, I went pop into one in Richmond over on the Sanderson side, by the airport. And that one, they have that little bit of fabric. In fact, I'm going to put up, my partner Les made this Monopoly pillow with this sewing machine. This is her sewing machine, where she makes her pillows. I bought a vintage Singer at my local to like the DC region reuse store, Scrap Baltimore. We also have Upcycle Creative Reuse. And yes, we have all these other artisanal local yarn and local fabric stores that support the fact that there's so much federal money here on all sides. There's so much military money. There's so much international affairs money. And so if you're a crafter in the DC region, you have what you need. But say you're a crafter in North Carolina and you don't live in Raleigh or Durham or Chapel Hill or even Charlotte where the money's flowing. You live in Greensboro like I did, where when we lost the textile mills, many of which, and yeah, that's it. Many of our grandparents and sometimes parents worked in those textile mills before they were outsourced overseas. So we watched this like parade. And then we know about companies that claim that they love God and they don't really love everybody. There's a few that I would love to shout out, but I don't want to make that. I'm only mentioning one store name, that is JoAnn, on this video about how I feel. So now this is a good point for me to pause and be like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to replace my Pride yarn? How am I going to replace that KNC cotton, which I had the best project working on. And even though this version of this yarn came from Walmart, I saw it in a big twist skate and I was going to buy up all of these. I still have plans for my cape and my winter dress for DC Frocktails. So here's the thing. I will briefly mention, if you are in need of figuring out how to replace your yarns and there's a lot of concerns, or maybe I could just wait. Yeah, I'll split those up into other videos, because I did some videos originally on sourcing and how I pick my hooks and everything. And that'll be in my like kind of playlist of getting started. Not the one that I have up on the channel already that will come up at the end, only in the screen of how I got started. But, and then of course I have the video on how to untangle your yarn, because that's important. But what I do want to mention, if you haven't already heard, I want to be another voice of reason, one that's been journalistically trained. My background is in journalism and communication and media. I was a journalism fellow for a program called Maynard Institute. And basically I'm just sharing that to say that I've had a lot of training in misinformation, disinformation, knowing when something is and isn't going to happen. And so based on what I have seen on those JoAnn Reddits and what I have seen in the store with packages unopened and nobody seeming to touch them, and yet some stores like the one in Sterling having a bunch of people, but yet I go to Brandywine, I go to Columbia Crossing, I go to Seven Corners, and it seems like there's a mismatch. In fact, Seven Corners, I looked up the last time I was in there and the roof was leaking. I do believe that this is it. There are company names involved. There's a company called Gordon Brothers, and if anybody's been following the Big Lots liquidation, they have been part of that. This company tends to buy the company, empty everything out, liquidate it to pay debts, and then they might sell the name to somebody else. So just like you can go to Circuit City, Pier 1, Linens and Things, Bed Bath & Beyond, and a few other nameplates online that don't no longer exist in public. Some of y'all might not even remember Circuit City. It was definitely in that era of Borders. And gosh, Borders, just this closing is up there with me with Borders closing. I was definitely, if I wasn't in the fabric store with my mom, and my mom worked at Peace Goods, so that's how far back we go. Peace Goods, Hancock. Apparently, and I'll link to Aronica's video. Aronica mentioned that Hancock is owned by Michaels, but I'm not really seeing the fruits of that. So Michaels, if this is your opportunity to shine, come on and do that. But please don't be doing what you were doing with me, almost messing up my crochet class that I taught in DC, where I had to have all these different parts and pieces coming together, and they were not the quality that I wanted. I've learned my lesson that I should have probably supplied from my local yarn store, but once again, another video about that. One thing is go ahead and stock up. I also remember when AC Moore shut down. AC Moore was relatively new for me. Yes, there was one in Greensboro, but I really didn't go in there that much. I had a cousin who swore by AC Moore and Michaels, but I really didn't do a lot there, partly because even though I grew up as with a mom that taught me how to sew, and I dabbled in crochet, I was busy building my urban planning and media business. I was busy trying to distinguish myself from that part of my life. But of course, when the pandemic hits and I have to slow down and my body slows me down, guess what? Guess what's sitting there in the bed with me on my bad days? Guess what's sitting there with me in the hospital if I'm waiting for myself, or I'm waiting with my partner for various medical things? Guess what's there when the power goes out, or when I need to turn off the screens because there's just so much overwhelming information. And I'm probably right here with you today. And I know I love being on this YouTube because I have my crochet projects in hand, or I'm drawing or sketching something, and there's a nice soothing voice that's on the other end. And so hopefully I will be that for you. I'm a fairly new voice, and as I've had my channel up for a few years. But yeah, back to AC Moore. Like, I was also, not only was I new to creating my channel, I was new to mastering crochet. Some nice black ladies at one of the DC Public Library branches and at a rec center here in DC got me in shape. Sitting with the elders, your mileage may vary. Same with Oxon Hill Library. Your mileage may vary, and once again, another video. I'm trying to just make this about go to JoAnn and get the stuff that you like, because I remember when I went to AC Moore, and they had that, I think they had a contract with the tulip company, so they had those off-label tulips with that great grip. Lord, I miss those. I'll order some tulip hooks now, and I will talk about them, and I will review them on this channel. And the other thing was, I lost my Notions bag, and I didn't have an air tag in there. Got an air tag up in there now, because guess what? That Notion is gone. It's gone. Just like that Studio by Nicole, like that chunky, that whatever it is, that coating that they put, like, I guess it's like a double, like, superwash coating they put on that acrylic to make it not feel like you're hurting your hands. Same with some of those cottons. That's that thing, that KNC cotton, that Big Twist, those Big Twist Pride ones, like I showed in the beginning, I'm gonna put up here again. My aim for, as they go into this process, not just to give any employee that I see props. I admire you, especially those who were working in the store in these last year when it was obvious that the ship was being shipwrecked. Those of you all who came to work at JoAnn, even though that fabric's not your jam, like crafting's not your jam, but it was a place you could easily get a job, I commend you. And I know that this fabric and yarn and craft space creates personalities of their own. There's so many classed and racialized things that come out in these craft spaces, and that's something I'm not going to shy away from on this channel, as well as me making projects. And even while I'm making projects, I will be talking about them. So if you need a home, because you're definitely not trying to go to the hate lobby, and if that's the only place you got to go, just get in there and get out. Just like sometimes I gotta eat at the chicken hate, and I just get in there and get out, even though I've got high blood pressure now, and it does shoot me straight up. So I try to limit my times going over there. But Southerner, most of our fast food places are owned by hateful people. Most of our businesses, like the people who've been able to amass money, we ain't that far from slavery. We ain't that far from segregation. And some of these little craft stores, these big box craft stores, have been left communities of color, been left Black communities. And if they're there, and you see this in the DC region and somewhat in the Atlanta region, we do have money. They do want to take our money, but it don't mean that they're going to keep the store up and running. It doesn't mean that they'll make sure they have stuff out. Like, that would be a great way to leverage DE&I, but all these companies taking away DE&I. Some of these companies have been abandoned their locations in primarily Black, brown, and I will say even Asian communities, depending on where you are in the world. So with that being said, if it's go out there for the very unique yarns. I'm not going to be mad if you got to the Big Twist Pride collection before me, because I was always already worried with this rollback of DE&I, even if the store didn't go completely bankrupt, that they were going to take that off the shelf. Excuse me, just a little hiccup there. That's no commentary on what I just said, but I felt like they might take it off the shelf. So go ahead and get that, the KNC cottons. And in a future video, I will talk about some ways that I've been able to dupe. So I won't be making patterns of any of the things that I'm using. I'm kind of glad that I had some barriers in the last calendar year in 2024 to keep me from really being able to pattern test and get new things out there, because clearly we about to lose a whole nother store, and there's gonna be a need, just like it's been a need in communities of color and really, really poor communities and really, really isolated communities, to give and share all those things, like to have these resources. And I know for many, ordering online is going to be a barrier. Going into the local stores that are left is going to be a barrier. And I want to be here in your pocket to be able to do that. In fact, I realized I didn't intend on starting this video with having a service, but you know what? These things unfortunately we live in capitalism. But I also like to live in commerce. And if you think that now that you have a little extra money that's not JoAnn, that it would be nice to have somebody like me in your pocket to go into the store with, you can book me for an hour and I will come on at your Zoom on your phone or Google Meet or whatever app that you prefer, FaceTime. I will come on those apps. I will be in your pocket, and you can show me the shelf, and I can tell of a local yarn store that maybe they might not want to help you, but I'll help you in your pocket. And likewise, any other store, especially if you have to drive hours. And I'm also open to sitting at home, and we can sit and look at the various websites. Now, one thing I'll notice, I'm really good at being able to tell you what's in most local yarn stores to buy. I'm still testing out some of the sites like Knit Picks, Hobbly, but thanks to the creative reuses that I mentioned, I've been able to touch some of those yarns. Like, I like Knit Picks quality. They have a DK that I managed to get some orange for. I was making Lessa's shorts here that I put up here on the screen, and so all of that is actually reused yarn, except for the Lily Sugar and Cream that's in her waistband. So, with that being said, how are we gonna handle the JoAnn death? How are y'all planning on handling this? I've mentioned that I'm going to stock up on yarns that I like that are very unique. And then I'm going to explore other places. And yes, I'm available to be here for you. And even if, the budget's not there for you to just pay me to be in your pocket, feel free to subscribe and like this channel, because I will be stepping up my yarn reviews, because you can never have too many yarn reviews. You can never have too many reviews on a pattern. You can never have too many reviews on a hook. That's what I love about this part of the internet and the community. You can never have too much. And it's somebody that loves to talk, but in a nice, kind Southern way. I would love to be here for you, even if it's just as a possibility model, even if it's just somebody to sit down and stitch to. With that being said, until next time, I'm Kristen. This is Chris Pattern, and I hope to see you on another video.